Scrolling through Weibo's emotional confession section, I stumbled upon my wife's secret account comments. After losing him, every lover since has resembled him. When my wife's ex-boyfriend returned to China with his 5-year-old daughter, she immediately forgot all about me. Only later did I discover that even the birthday gifts she gave me every year were things her ex-boyfriend had rejected. I filed for divorce. My wife frowned and said, "I'm not treating you as a substitute. The position of my husband will always be yours." I smiled, but I don't want to pick up someone else's leftovers either. I never expected to stumble upon my wife's secret account commenting under an emotional confession post on Weibo. After losing him, every man I've dated since has been tall and slender, wears glasses, and has crescent moon eyes when they smile. The day before our wedding, I called him. If he had just said he loved me, I would have run away from the wedding right then. There's no going back. Now his daughter is almost old enough for kindergarten. Aside from a flood of comments mourning their tragic love story, some people raised doubts. Your first love's daughter is already that old, and you're married too. After all these years, you're still hung up on him. Are you trying to cuckold your husband? My fingers paused for a moment before continuing to scroll down. Julia replied, "I'm trying my best to love him." I didn't know what Julia meant by trying my best. In our 4th year of marriage, Julia, who had never lifted a finger to do housework before, cooked me a whole table full of dishes. She nestled in my arms and whispered softly, "Honey, I'll spend every birthday with you from now on. Let me give you a baby. The 3 of us will be together, happy as can be." The next day, Andrew returned to his home country, and Julia didn't come back all night. The reason Andrew returned to his home country was that his Chable wife had passed away unexpectedly. His stepchildren divided the family fortune and mercilessly kicked him out. Even the little girl, just 5 years old, was sent back to their home country along with him. The diamond cufflinks Julia gave me for my birthday are still on my wrists. Yet she herself was supporting Andrew when our eyes unexpectedly met. Andrew wore gold-rimmed glasses exuding an air of elegance. "Thomas, don't overthink it. Julia was helping me last night." Julia interrupted him. "No need to explain, Jean. ISNT, the petty type." "All right," they said, exchanging a smile as if no one else was around. When Andrew had slowly made his way upstairs, Julia seemed to suddenly remember my presence and walked over to me. "Last night was unexpected. Andrew had a stomach hemorrhage and his daughter suddenly developed a high fever. There was no one else to help, so of course I had to step in and take care of them." She reached for my hand. Quite naturally, "Honey, you're not angry, are you?" But I shook her off and even pulled out a tissue to wipe my hand. Julia froze, her expression darkening. "Thomas, what do you mean didn't I already explained to you there's nothing between Andrew and me. Let us get divorced." For a moment, Julia's face went completely blank, as if she couldn't comprehend why I would say such a thing at all. "Thomas, you can't just say things like that in the heat of the moment. Forget it. I was wrong last night. I should have told you sooner. But there's really nothing between me and Andrew." I smiled. "Julia, I saw your secret Weibo account. What a coincidence, huh? I'd always known about that alternate account, but I respected her past and privacy, never investigating it. That night, I followed the comments and clicked through every word. Every photo told the story of how deeply unforgettable her past relationship with Andrew had been. I always thought this account had been abandoned after the Chu family went bankrupt and Andrew abandoned her to go abroad alone. But I never expected the latest update was just a month ago. Julia posted a night view of Disneyland with the caption, "Thinking of you again. After all these years, I still can't forget. How pathetic of me." I said, "Julia, you don't have to try to love me anymore. I don't want it. Let us get divorced." Loving someone has never required deliberate effort. Just like how I fell in love with Julia at first sight. When I met her, Julia had already fallen from being the pampered princess everyone adored to facing setbacks everywhere and enduring cold shoulders. I was starting my own business at the time. Julia's requested internship salary wasn't cheap, but I still hired her. A friend who knew the inside story teased me, "You're not falling for her. Are you? Miss Chu is indeed beautiful, but she's carrying a lot of debt. If you want to marry someone like that, you'd better weigh your own financial situation first." But at the time, I didn't think that far ahead. I just wanted to repay her kindness in my own way. I said, "After all, the person you've always loved was never me. You only married me because your mother told you to. It was selfish of me to trap you in this marriage. Now that he's single again, why don't we both face our true feelings? Wouldn't that be better?" Yet Julia denied it without a second thought. "It's you who stopped loving me. ISNT it otherwise. Why would you want a divorce over such trivial matters?" Julia grew impatient. "Fine, I used to hold on to feelings for Andrew, but that's all in the past. Those posts were just late-night emotional moments. They pass. Why can't you let it go?" Perhaps my heart had already ached too long this night. At this moment, I could even question her calmly. "Just the past, Julia, can you honestly say there was ever a single moment during all these years of dating and marriage when I ranked higher than Andrew in your heart?" Julia opened her mouth, but not a single word came out. I laughed mockingly at myself. "Julia, even the birthday gift you gave me was something he didn't want. For I still remember that birthday many years ago. After finishing work, I ordered a small cake thinking to celebrate by myself. but I ran into Julia downstairs at the company. She looked travel-worn and weary-eyed. Thinking she might be in some trouble, I pulled her to sit by the flower bed downstairs and split the little cake in half. Grandpa used to say eating something sweet makes you happy. Julia let out a merciless sneer. Thomas, did you learn your flirting techniques in Taiwan? Feeling awkward at the time, I could only muddle through with a random excuse. I later found out Julia was laughing at me for sounding like an old-school Taiwanese idol drama. I was an orphan adopted by my grandfather. Though he doted on me, I couldn't in good conscience keep sucking his blood. Although the Chu family later sponsored me, the principle I learned since childhood was to be self-reliant. Apart from attending classes and getting minimal sleep, I spent all my time working odd jobs. Naturally, I had no time to watch the Taiwanese idol dramas Julia mentioned. When Julia found out it was my birthday that day, she froze at first. Then she handed me an exquisitely wrapped gift box, proudly threatening, if you don't take it, I'll throw it away. Inside was a necktie. During our first year together, Julia accidentally ended up celebrating my birthday with me. I thought that would mark the beginning of our romantic story. But for several years after that, she always had various reasons for not being able to accompany me. Yet she would always give me a belated gift the day after my birthday. Until that night, when I saw photos of those gifts appearing repeatedly on Julia's secret Weibo account. They were originally bought for Andrew. She couldn't forget him, yet her feminine pride wouldn't allow her to make the first move to reconcile. Every year on July 12th, Julia's sudden disappearance meant she had gone abroad. She needed to see Andrew's current situation with her own eyes from afar before she could feel at ease. Julia anxiously picked at her manicure, repeating, "Only, it's not what you think, let me explain." I waited patiently, but she couldn't provide any reasonable explanation. That is, right after feeling secure, she merely handed me those gifts she hadn't given away, as if bestowing charity upon me. Foolishly unaware, I was deeply moved at the time. In the first year of my marriage to Julia, I took over the Chu family's defunct company and gradually revived the Chu Corporation from the brink of collapse. The magazines called me a business prodigy, praising me for repaying a drop of kindness with a flood of gratitude. Only I knew that it wasn't just about repaying a kindness. It was for the girl I deeply loved. Finally, Julia came up with an excuse. "Since you've seen my Weibo, you should understand that before you I did seek comfort from guys who resembled Andrew, but you're nothing like him." The one who had done wrong acted as if she were the wrong party, her eyes reddening with tears. "I never treated you as a substitute, even if I made mistakes before. Didn't we agree on our birthdays? I'll have your baby, and we'll live happily as a family of 3. Then why did you keep contacting Andrew behind my back? Even if you two truly have a clear conscience, Julia, you're an adult. Don't you understand how inappropriate it is for a man and woman to be alone together? If Julia had called me to handle it, or even just given me a heads up, I might not have been so devastated. Besides, dare you swear that you truly, genuinely have a clear conscience?" I gave her a bitter smile under her guilty gaze. "You make me feel like I never truly had you. Whenever Andrew appears, I'm bound to lose." 6. Just then, Andrew came downstairs again. He acted as if nothing had happened, sincerely apologizing to me and taking all the blame upon himself. "I'm sorry, Thomas. I've been abroad for too long, and my habits are different last night. Everything just piled up at once." Julia has always relied on me since childhood. When she saw I was in trouble, she panicked and forgot everything else. I apologized to you on her behalf. He turned to Julia. "Again, Julia, you've been married to Thomas for so many years. Say something soft. What couple holds grudges overnight?" Between the lines, it was all hinting at his close relationship with Julia, while pretending to be a peacemaker, as if he weren't the one who lit the fuse. I smiled at him, and Andrew wore an expression that said the student has learned well. The next second, my fist landed on his face. "Andrew!" Julia exclaimed, rushing over to check his injuries, before turning to yell at me. "What did you do?" Andrew's left cheek immediately swelled from my punch, his gaze fierce, but in the next second, as he looked at Julia, it shifted to one of wounded magnanimity. "Julia, don't blame Thomas." Let him vent a little sigh. I flexed my wrist, utterly unfazed. "There's no custom abroad of clinging to married women to take care of you, either. Andrew, save your green tea. Male act, it might work on Julia, and those rich women you leech off, but it won't work on me." At the mention of leeching off rich women, a shadow of gloom flickered through Andrew's eyes. Julia actually defended him at this point. "I know you dislike Andrew, but why slander him like this?" She bit her lip and added, "I've met Sister Eva. She and Andrew are truly in love. It's not as sordid as you're making it out to be. Come at me if you have anything to say. The deceased is gone. Don't speak like that." I couldn't be bothered to argue any longer and walked away. After wrapping up work at the office, I returned home. In the evening, the moment I turned on the lights, I saw Julia sitting on the couch. Her eyes were red and swollen, as if she'd been crying. For the first time, I didn't immediately rush to comfort her. My feet seemed rooted to the spot as silence filled the room until Julia spoke first. I want to agree to a divorce. She kept her head down and continued speaking. I was wrong before, but by your birthday, I truly made up my mind. It was just habit that made me lose my bearings when facing Andrew again. I truly have no feelings for him anymore. I just want to live a good life with you, Thomas. The first know how well you've treated me. You brought Chew Corporation back from the brink. You love me so much you even remember my menstrual cycle better than I do all these years when I didn't want children. You never forced me. She finally raised her head, her eyes brimming with tears again. I want to get divorced. My husband can only be you, and don't you remember you promised my mother you'd take care of me for life? Thomas, are you going back on your word now? 7. I fled in panic. Responsibility, love, dignity. These complex contradictions pressed down on me until I could barely breathe. By the time I realized it, I was already in the car driving toward the hospital. After Grandpa fell ill, he had been staying at this hospital continuously. The moment he saw me, he first called out a strange name, then clamored for food. Just as a nurse was briefing me on his condition, he suddenly regained clarity. Jian, I turned around to see his eyes, filled with tenderness. You came to see me. Why are you alone? Where's Julia? I was at a loss for words. Grandpa seemed oblivious and asked me to wheel him outside for some sunshine. The air by the lake was exceptionally fresh, and my heart gradually calmed down. At that moment, Grandpa said, you've always liked Julia the most. You two must be good to each other, Jian. Don't keep everything bottled up inside. Be brave and fight for your own happiness. I was taken aback. My grandfather's aged hand, rough like tree bark, grasped mine, a bit coarse yet warm. Julia is just spoiled. Last time, when you were away on business, she came to see me alone and told me she is aware of all your kindness toward her. She wanted to let you down. I gently wheeled my sleeping grandfather back and was about to leave when the doctor stopped me. Have you considered the treatment plan we discussed last time? Thomas, the surgery has a high failure rate. With conservative treatment, the old man could hold on for a few more years. I sat alone in the car for a long time, repeatedly flipping through old photos and videos of me and Grandpa. Opening the front door, the warm lighting felt strangely alien, as if from another world. Julia stood there, wearing an apron, an oven, mitts, carefully carrying a pot of soup toward the table. When she saw me, she gasped in surprise, momentarily losing her grip, as if scalded, and abruptly let go. The aroma of chicken soup filled the entire room as the sound of shattered porcelain echoed. Instinctively, I rushed over to grab the first aid kit and pulled her hand to check the injury. Julia lowered her head, her tone dejected. I'm sorry, Jian. I'm so clumsy. Pursing my lips tightly, I tended to her burns. Only when everything was done did I finally exhale the suffocating frustration in my chest. Julia softened her voice. I'll learn to be a good wife. Grandpa said what you've always wanted since childhood was a warm family. You're a pampered young lady. Even after marrying me, you don't need to do these things. Let the housekeeper handle them. With her uninjured hand, she took mine and interlaced our fingers. She looked into my eyes. Jian, trust me one last time. Okay, let us try our best. Maybe we'll have a baby soon. This time we'll be proper parents and make our child happy, alright? I admit at this moment my heart softened again. After loving Julia for so many years, this feeling, something I can just let go of so easily. Moreover, I made a promise to her mother. Not long after Julia joined my startup company, she belatedly discovered her salary was 3 higher than her colleagues. She handed me her pay stub and confronted me pressing until I confessed that I was being sponsored by the Chu Family Charity Education Foundation. Julia's expression was complicated at that moment. Most people wouldn't hesitate to kick someone when they're down. I never expected to meet a bleeding heart like you willing to help me, haha. Sometime later, she mysteriously told me she was taking me somewhere. It wasn't until I arrived that I learned she was visiting her mother in a nursing home. After the bankruptcy, Chu's father couldn't bear the pressure and committed suicide. Mrs. Chu also became depressed and her health gradually deteriorated. Julia also had to pay the high costs of her mother's nursing home, leaving her financially strained. The once lofty young lady who floated high in the clouds had now fallen into the dust and mud. I didn't know what to say either, so I silently paid her fees for a year. When Julia found out, she slapped an envelope full of cash onto my desk. Thomas the First took you to see my mom just because I wanted someone to share warmth with, not to treat you like a fool. I clumsily explained that I just wanted to express my gratitude to the Chu family in my own way. Julia stared at me for a long moment before suddenly laughing. Thomas, you're not falling for me, are you? 9. Naturally, Julia and I grew closer and closer. Later, when Mrs. Chu became seriously ill, she solemnly entrusted Julia to my care. On the day she was buried, Julia neither cried nor spoke. Only in the dead of night did she suddenly throw herself into my arms, weeping until her voice was hoarse. She said, Thomas the First, only have you now. At that moment, I thought to myself, I might spend my entire life ready to go through fire and water, even unto death, for a girl named Julia. Julia, before me, was still eagerly awaiting my response. After a long pause, I nodded. The Chu group was negotiating an important collaboration. If successful, it would mean a chance to rise again regardless of whether Thomas was still around by then. As long as nothing went wrong, operations could continue smoothly. I said let us set the case negotiation as our deadline. We'll both give each other one last chance. If Julia and I were still destined to fall apart, at least I would have repaid the Chu family as kindness to me. If Julia could truly prove her love for me during this time, then I'd be willing to forgive her one last time. For nearly half a month, Julia actually managed it. Her heart and eyes were completely focused on me. If we ignored all the ugliness behind the scenes, it almost felt like we were back in those early days of dating, so sweet and tender. Another week passed. The moment I stepped through the company doors, I noticed my subordinates wearing strange expressions. I pushed open my office door to find everything in complete disarray, as if a hurricane had swept through. My assistant looked deathly pale. Thomas the first sent you a message. The young mistress brought a little girl to play. And then, next to me, laughter spilled from Julia's office. Holding on to my last shred of composure, I watched as the office door opened. Julia, Andrew, and a little girl playfully waving a file, like an airplane, all laughing joyfully. When she saw me, a flicker of guilt crossed Julia's face. Jian, I've already called someone up. Your office will be restored to its original state in no time. I was absolutely furious. Julia, have you lost your mind? There are so many important documents in my office, and you actually let a little girl go in there to play. Julia knew she was in the wrong, but still tried to defend herself. Lily is only 5 years old. She doesn't understand anything. What if she folds those important documents into paper airplanes to play with? Do you have any idea how serious the consequences could be? Over the years, I really had spoiled Julia rotten. Even though I enrolled her in an MBA program and personally tried to teach her the ropes of business at the company, she showed no willingness to learn. At this point, she doesn't even realize the seriousness of someone barging into the CEO's office unannounced. Andrew flashed that smile again and immediately began apologizing. It's all my fault. The housekeeper took leave, so I had to bring Lily along. But as soon as I got to work, things got hectic, and I lost track of her. For a moment, my apologies, Thomas. I quickly caught the key detail in his words. What did you say about going to work? Andrew smiled with smug satisfaction as he flipped over the nameplate on his desk. It read Andrew, Executive Vice President. Julia, I turned to her again. Have you completely lost your mind? You didn't even consult me before making him Vice President. Julia initially tried to explain Andrew graduated from a prestigious foreign university. 2. He is perfectly qualified. He just returned to the country and hasn't found suitable work yet. With how busy we've been lately, I thought he could come help you out. I cut her off directly. You know exactly how critical this moment is. Even if they're your blood relatives, we still have to consider whether they might be corporate spies. Any high-level personnel changes that haven't gone through me are completely invalid. All the assistants and staff were watching from the side. Julia looked visibly embarrassed after being confronted like this by me. Thomas, does everything need your approval? Have you forgotten that I hold 7 of Chu Corporation as shares? I'm George's daughter. After all, what are you planning to make Chu Corporation take your Yi family name? Her words struck at the very heart of the matter, utterly devastating. All these years apart from receiving my rightful dividends and salary, the entire Chu Corporation from name to actual ownership has been written into the prenuptial agreement as belonging solely to Julia. Even Julia regretted her words the moment they left her mouth. Jian, that's not what I meant. Enough. Andrew's daughter sensed the tension and burst into loud wails. The noise gave me a headache. If you really think you're wrong, then tell him to get the hell out of here. Julia frowned. You can't even tolerate a single father with a child. Or do you still not trust me thinking I hired Andrew? Because I want something to happen between us. You keep saying you don't mean it that way, but everything you've done contradicts your words. Let me ask you this. Even if it's for Chu Corporation, do you still insist on keeping him here as your so-called vice president? Julia grew angry as she spoke and snapped back at me. So what if I do this as my company and what I say goes? Fine, I laughed in extreme anger. If you want to leave, then I will. Julia stared at me with disbelief. Thomas, are you threatening me? Then go ahead and leave. I don't believe Chu Corporation can't function without you. 12. I returned to my office to pack my personal belongings while my assistant followed me, urging me not to act out of spite with Julia. A grown man like me wouldn't act out of spite. I'm just tired. Countless nights till dawn, I worked tirelessly at my desk until my medical report was filled with ailments, giving my all for Julia, for the Chu family, for love, and for gratitude. I achieved results that were later analyzed as classic case studies, only to be told in the end the Chu family will keep turning without you. Julia chased after me, stopping me in the underground parking lot. Do you have to be so petty? I didn't even want to say a word. Julia glared at me resentfully. Don't you dare regret this. She had barely left when another person arrived. It was Andrew. He looked at me with the smile of a victor. Thomas, it's good to face reality sooner rather than later. His gaze swept over me with contempt. After all, Julia and I belong to the same world. The previously suspended divorce proceedings were back on the table. I made up my mind to leave the Chu family, so that agreement naturally becomes void. I moved out of the marital home with Julia, and several headhunters immediately reached out to me when they heard the news. I just want to take some time off first. I'm exhausted. Julia must have seen the divorce papers on the table and has been bombarding me with calls. She even asked several mutual friends for my current address. Annoyed beyond tolerance, I blocked her. One evening, just as I returned from jogging, the hospital suddenly called. By the time I arrived, panting Grandpa had already been admitted to the ICU. I was utterly distraught in that moment. This 6-foot-tall man couldn't hold back the tears welling in his eyes. Even I, a staunch materialist, found myself silently praying to all the gods in heaven to keep my grandfather safe. I couldn't bear to lose him. But heaven had other plans. Grandfather briefly regained consciousness, yet the nurse beside him wore a sorrowful expression. I had experienced such a scene before when Chu's mother entrusted Julia to me. Grandpa held my hand, rambling on while I nodded with a choked voice. Suddenly his gaze grew urgent as he searched around. Where's Julia, my granddaughter-in-law? I need to speak with her for a moment. 13 frantically, I pulled Julia out of the blacklist and called her. Within seconds the call connected. I was about to speak when I heard Julia's icy voice. Why did you unblock me? Block me. When you feel like it, call me. When you feel like it, do you still think of me as your wife? The moment I opened my mouth, my voice cracked with emotion. Grandpa, not doing well. He wants to see you come to the hospital as soon as you can. The sooner the better. The other end of the phone fell silent. I thought Julia would start getting ready immediately, but instead I heard her scoff. What, Thomas can't even swallow your pride to apologize properly, so you're resorting to excuses like this? The little girl's laughter rang out on the other end of the phone, and I could also hear Andrew's voice calling her to come eat. Julia responded while I quickly spoke before she could hang up. I'm not lying to you, Julia. I can video call you right now. I'm begging you, Grandpa. Really can't wait any longer. Please come to the hospital. Julia's voice finally turned serious. I'll be right there. But Julia never came, even as Grandpa's throat made a hoarse sound as he tightly grasped my hand and finally slowly closed his eyes. I sat on the hospital corridor floor until a figure came running up to me. Julia crouched in front of me, her face full of disbelief. Jian, I didn't think it would be so soon. Why did you only come now? Julia hesitated awkwardly. Lily suddenly had a stomachache and absolutely wouldn't let me leave, so I had to take her to the children's hospital with Andrew first. I felt almost numb. Lily has her biological father with her. What about my grandfather? His last wish before passing was to speak with you one more time. I laughed, though it probably looked uglier than crying. Julia, do you even have a heart? Even if I've upset you, what did grandfather do wrong? Is it that no matter what, whenever Andrew is involved, you'll always push my matters aside? Julia remained silent. Finally, I said softly, Julia, let us get divorced. I really don't want to drag this out any longer. I want to take even a single sheet of paper from the Chu family. If you're still not satisfied, I'll leave with nothing. Is that okay? 14. Julia's tears fell in large drops. It's my fault. I agree, she said. Julia was there on the day of Grandpa's burial. I had my friend stop her at the gate. She stood motionless outside like a statue, refusing to leave. Apart from my own company, I truly kept my word, not taking a single cent from the Chu family's assets. The day we walked out of the civil affairs office, Andrew was waiting outside with Lily. Lily immediately threw herself at Julia, looking up with her face. Annie, you're single now. So can I ask my dad to chase you? I want you to be my new mommy. Julia glanced at my expression, then firmly yet gently pushed Lily away. Andrew hesitated. Julia said firmly, I'm sorry, Andrew, though it's too late, and many things can't be undone. I've truly made up my mind. We can never go back. The person I truly love is Jian. I noticed her gaze falling on me again. When I didn't respond, she looked somewhat dejected. I've already recommended you to the headhunter for the executive vice president position. I want to take it back. Andrew was deeply shocked. Julia, why are you saying this now? Didn't you divorce that you got to get back together with me? Julia shook her head. It's all my fault. I was clinging to the past, unwilling to move on. But Andrew, back then you were the one who abandoned me. During my hardest times, the person who truly pulled me out of the mud was Jian. Andrew's expression darkened further. Do you look down on me for having a child? Lily looked bewildered. Lily, adorable. How could Aunt Julia look down on Lily? Julia continued shaking her head. Eric sent me a lot of things, including how you and Sister Eva met. Andrew's face turned completely black with anger. Eric was the name of the eldest son of that American tycoon heiress. Though I didn't know what the thing was, I thought it must be something remarkable. For the first time, Andrew failed to maintain his hypocritical composure and stormed off in anger. After Andrew left, Julia smiled at herself mockingly. I was too foolishly clinging to that shadow from my youth, but he had long changed, abandoning me to marry Eva for fame and fortune. Now that the Chu family has risen again, he's trying to win me back, haha. Her eyes brimmed with sorrow. I was too foolish. The one truly worth cherishing I cast aside like worthless shoes. 15. I didn't T-block Julia a second time, so she bombarded me with messages every day. Friends used to jokingly call me the 24 filial virtues, good husband. I reveled in Julia's routine inquiries about my well-being, finding sweetness in their predictability. The secretary said Julia would bring homemade soup to the reception desk every day, waiting downstairs for a long time before leaving dejectedly. She sent me photos of her scalded hands, but my heart remained unmoved. On the day Julia finally couldn't hold back and insisted on meeting me, a major incident occurred. The Chu Corporation faced a massive crisis. The previously steadily progressing collaboration completely fell through after confidential information was leaked to the rival company. It never rains, but it pours. As if possessing divine foresight, our competitors intercepted several crucial partnerships. One after another, a project Andrew had negotiated before his departure continued to be implemented because Julia hadn't given instructions and subordinates didn't dare make decisions on their own. Then disaster struck. When Julia met me, she had lost considerable weight, her face was pale, and her tone was heavy. Jian, I beg you, help me one last time. You can't bear to see the Chu Corporation into which you've poured so much effort collapse again, can you? I shook my head. What's done is done. There's nothing I can do. Julia propped her forehead up with her hand and smiled bitterly. Forget it. I know you hate me. I shouldn't have come. I said I really want to help you. The Chu Corporation has never had anything to do with me from the start. Besides, I raised my phone to show her. Did you not see the news? Or did Lao Lu and the others fail to inform you? The freshly published headline blared, Chu family in major crisis, board members report police involvement, corporate spy revealed to be the Chu heiress' first love. Julia stared blankly as if the words had suddenly become unrecognizable. Julia was right. I used to be a hopeless do-gooder with an overdeveloped sense of responsibility. I've made up my mind to change, so I got up and left without hesitation. I didn't say another word to her. The Chu group was severely weakened and could barely take care of itself, while other competitors like sharks smelling blood in the water all wanted a piece of the pie. Former colleagues and subordinates came pleading for me to return and take charge again. I turned them all down. Julia texted me, it feels like when my dad first passed away, all over again. I have no one to rely on. But Julia, you once did. You're the one who wounded him until he was covered in scars, the one who pushed him away. Seeing that Julia was unwilling to take him back, Andrew simply abandoned his pretenses. He accepted a massive bribe from a rival company and helped bring down the Chu Corporation. Then he absconded with the money. However, not everyone in the Chu family was foolish. After reporting to the police, Andrew was caught by international police on a flight transferring to a small European country, thanks to the help of Eric and others. He was extradited back to China and prosecuted for violating trade secrets. The Chu family's scandal, filled with gossip and drama, went viral on the country's largest social media platform for a long time. I still remember our teacher using the Chu family's turnaround as a classic case study in class, who knew it was actually so complicated behind the scenes. A poor boy works for a rich beauty without taking a single share, yet the rich beauty is eager to become someone else's stepmother. TSK. The Chu family deserves to end up like this. Without the capability, some things are destined to be lost. Talented people shine, no matter what. Thomas rose from being an orphan to where he is now, step by step, with his feet firmly on the ground. Everyone should support Thomas's own company. Instead, it's a pity he misjudged someone. Just goes to show that deep affection has never been enough to keep things intact. The usually proud Julia couldn't stand being mocked back and forth online and ended up sending cease and desist letters to over a dozen netizens. But netizens weren't easily intimidated, and their words grew even sharper. A former subordinate told me Julia was overwhelmed, staggering into the office drunk on several occasions. It seemed like drowning sorrows and alcohol had led to developing a drinking problem. One late night, Julia called me while heavily intoxicated. I was the one who destroyed Dad's life's work with my own hands. I was the one who ruined our marriage. She wailed, Jian, you're abandoning me too. I've lost everything now. I said patiently, I'm not a therapist. You don't need to tell me these things. To my surprise, the drunken Julia actually said again, Jian, let us remarry, okay? I told you before, the position of my husband will always be yours. I laughed. Julia, I don't pick through trash. At this point, keeping her contact information would only be a nuisance. No longer needing to worry about the Chu family affairs, I began focusing wholeheartedly on managing the first company under my own name. With an excellent reputation in the industry, where everyone was willing to work with me, coupled with years of experience, my own company grew larger and more successful. The business was thriving, and I gradually opened my heart. I met a girl who was completely different from Julia. She was my former junior. She would argue fiercely for the company's interests, and when my stomach ailment prevented me from attending a meeting, she stepped in and won a brilliant victory on my behalf. She shone brightly spirited and confident with a captivating smile. I strive to keep up with Thomas S. pace. I never wanted to be a delicate greenhouse flower, but rather a towering tree that can stand shoulder to shoulder with you weathering storms together. 3 years